Hey, this is Dirk Nowitzki, and you listen to the Mavs Step Back podcast.
I like this, TK. I like that. Yeah, it's the Mavericks, all about action. Don't do no acting, no Samuel Jackson. Dirk get the ball, you know that it's magic. Post move deadly, yeah, get tragic. Luka with the ball, yeah, get nasty. He'll drop 30, don't gotta ask him.
Luka with the step back three. Oh, yeah! Porzingis three-pointer, yes, sir. Taking the three after the pump fake, and it's money for Porzingis.
Now you got my boy Chris Stabs, looking like Dirk and Nash in the gap. They just want a ring, wanna fill the gap on your team head. I ain't talking heads, dang, go relax, still at the champ. Defense still coming with the best flow. The man's the best on the flow. I'm wild, but yeah, I'm the GOAT. This game get cold. Yeah, you might need a coach. Your friends turn into your foe.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Mavs Step Back podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host and Dallas basketball on SI colleague, Matt Galatson. And for the second straight week, we have our guy, Mike Fisher, with us. Fish, how you doing?
Outstanding, except for I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Aren't you guys?
Yeah. Yes. Leading up to the opening game, I didn't realize that it was a 9:30 tip. And I remember texting y'all, and I was like, we could still record because it might be over after 11, but I wasn't that good at math, and I was like, no, it's going to be after midnight.
I so realized that and was so anticipating the problem. I tried to take a nap. Which I mean, what am I, 6? But it didn't work, but I tried.
Well, I was planning to and never got to, so it would have been brutal for me because I still had to go to work from 8 to 11:30. But anyway, so the season is officially underway. The Mavs, they didn't really get off to the start they wanted. They knew it was going to be tough going in because, I mean, let's just face it, the Phoenix Suns have given them fits for the longest time now. They've now lost 12 of the last 16 matchups with the Suns. And they haven't beaten the Suns. They will not beat the Suns in this calendar year of 2020. They're 0-4. So every time they play them, it doesn't matter how good they are, how bad they are. They just can't get over that hump. And that continued last night in the season opener when they lost 106-102. Luka had a really good overall stat line, but his shooting was not ideal, to put it nicely. He was 11 of 26 from the field, didn't make a three, 0 of 6 there. But bright side is he started out the season shooting 10 of 12 from the free throw line. So that is a good sign going forward. But Fish, we'll start with you. What's your initial reactions to the Mavs season opening loss?
Well, first of all, I knew you'd put some positive spin on it.
Yeah.
Everything's fine. Everything's rosy. Look, he made a free throw. Here's my positive spin on it. And I almost was going to call our man at Mavs Highlights on Twitter and say, go make a big deal of the sequence early in the game where Luka he's got a bunny and he misses it. Then he tries to tip it in. Then he grabs the rebound and tips it again. I'm exaggerating only a little bit. Then he tips it again. So he was 0 for 4 from the floor in 4 seconds.
Yeah.
So that almost shouldn't count against you. Those count as rebounds and shots. I mean, they do. They were failures, but I think that skews his numbers a little bit. That was one trip down the floor. That wasn't 4 ruined offensive opportunities. It was 1.
Right. Yeah. The 0 of 6 from 3 was probably the bigger issue, not the overall shooting percentage.
And I know Carlisle is going to snap at me when he hears us say this, because I understand his view about the modern geometry and how it opened up the floor and stuff. But I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm an old man. 30-foot step back jump shots are bad shots. They're always bad shots. They'll always be bad shots. Yeah. And the reason they're bad shots is because you can get a better one.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that Luka admitted that after the game. If we go back and review this game, I'm not going to. I'm not going to go back and watch it. I don't know about you.
I'm not either.
Hardworking characters, but I've seen enough. Luka could get every shot. He could get any 3-foot shot he wanted all game.
Yeah.
It was easy. And he makes it easy. And he didn't do it. I'm reminded of, that the movie Airplane. Is that before your guys' time?
Oh, no, I've seen it. Right.
Yeah, I've seen it. It is a little bit before my time, but I have seen it.
But it's still hysterical. And the little kid goes into the cockpit to talk to who turns out to be Kareem, and Kareem's pretending that he's not Kareem. And the kid says, I know who you are. And my dad says that sometimes you loaf and you're lazy. And Kareem finally admits he's Kareem and says, you tried dragging Bob Lanier and whatever he said, guys like Bob Lanier up and down the floor 82 times a year. And so the point being, Kareem could have scored anytime he wanted to too, anytime, but it's hard. It takes it out of you. So I don't think Luka is physically prepared, frankly, to do all the things that he could have done to win that game last night.
I think that was a really nice way to put it, that he wasn't physically prepared.
Yeah. There's been
I'll be a
some
little
takes
harsh
there.
He looked out of shape. He looked overwhelmed, not overwhelmed, but just with the physical part, he just looked like he wasn't ready. And
he had a cow lick, if that tells you anything.
It looked
like he just woke up from a nap.
Frankly, it looked like he spent the entire offseason sitting on the couch playing Fortnite, eating that sausage that he's sponsored by in Slovenia. I mean, he doesn't look good, but still, he managed 32, 8, and 5 or whatever.
Right.
It was. So,
right.
Which is why he's the MVP favorite, because that's an off game by his standards, and he still put up 32, 8, and 5.
He's not going to be 0 of 6 from 3 every night. He's not going to, he's not going to start 0 of 6 and finish 6 of whatever. I mean, it was a bad game, and he still put up dominant numbers on the stat sheet, which is fine. It's just, you hope for better in a season opener when they were just playing on the floor a month and a half, 2 months ago.
I'll say this too. As bad as Luka's shooting night was overall, the next highest score for the Mavs was Josh Richardson and Tim Hardaway Jr., and they had 12 apiece. So, with KP being out, that's not going to cut it. You're going to have guys step up a little bit more than that and get in that 18 to 20 point range. He's got to have a little bit more help than what he had against the Suns. And I don't know if y'all caught it, but towards the end of that game, the Mavs, they were down by 1. They had the ball. Luka or Maxey set a screen. It was a pick and pop, and he threw it to Maxey. There was still like 10 seconds left on the shot clock, and he shot a 3 with 10 seconds left on the shot clock when he could have either passed it back to Luka or he could have given it to Josh Richardson on the other side of the wing for a little bit better shot. What do you think about that? You think, in that situation, Luka, made the right play to give it to Maxey and him firing it from the top, or should he have, taken on Devin Booker to get to the rim?
Luka wasn't trying to get an assist on that play. He was just giving up the ball.
Yeah.
Maxey acted like it was assist time. And if I'm recalling right, the ball came from over there. The ball came from the side to where Maxey had to turn his body around.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a catch and shoot. It was a catch and adjust and shoot, a distant 3-pointer with 10 seconds left on the shot clock for a guy who, not that Maxey hasn't made himself into somebody who can do that, but that's not an optimal shot. And by the way, then Luka did it. Luka also did it. He took a shot with 9 seconds left on the shot clock from 1,000,000 feet away.
Yeah.
This is going to lead into a conversation about who should be the crunch time center. Because I think we all are in the same boat there. But one more item on this. You're going to have lower scoring games. The Mavericks aren't going to lose games 150 to 149 this year. You're going to have games like that are 106 and good. That's good.
Yeah. The defense is visibly better.
No question.
It's much better.
And that means fewer possessions in a game, which means fewer opportunities, and you better take advantage of the opportunities, but it doesn't mean that your second scorer can score 12 points. You won't win. You can't win. And I don't care who the second scorer is. Your third scorer can't score 12 points very often and win, although it happened for Phoenix. But their numbers were a little fluky too, because it looked to me like Devin Booker felt like he was going to score 40.
Yeah. And he ended up with 22. So
yeah. So again, there are some good things that came out of it, and the Mavericks improved defense is one of them. But Luka said, "My bad," and he talked about the shot selection, and that even with Maxey, Luka's in charge of the shot selection. He's in charge, and so even Maxey's bad shot was Luka's bad.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, look, Maxey, in the preseason, he shot the lights out, which, we've found out over the years, preseason doesn't amount to much because, Josh Richardson shot 73% from three in the preseason, and that's not going to, continue to happen going forward. But Maxey, he was just 2 of 7 from three on the night. So, I mean, I get it. I would have loved for him to hit that shot, and it'd been a great story. Maxey won the game for the Mavs and everything. But in crunch time, Luka, especially with KP out, he's going to have to find a way to do it himself and do it in a way that isn't reckless, with the step back three. And I mean, he acknowledges that he needs to do that. So that's the good thing. He just has to apply it now. And sometimes we forget this guy is 21 years old. So that's not, he's not going to use that as an excuse, but he is still learning, and hopefully it'll get better as the season progresses. But moving on, Fish, like you said, this is leading into our next topic. But Willie Stein, the guy who we have been cheering for to be in the starting lineup, he only got 6 minutes yesterday, but he was a team high plus 14 in those minutes. When he's on the court, even if his stats don't reflect it, he only had 2 points, 2 rebounds, and I think a steal. But he was a plus 14. When he's on the court, good things happen. He was the only guy the Mavs had that could guard DeAndre Ayton when Ayton was on the court because he was in foul trouble early. So when they subbed him out with 3 minutes left and they put Maxi Kleber back in there, who was a team worse, negative 19 in that game, the Suns knew that. I mean, it's like their head coach knew what was going on, and they immediately gave the ball to Ayton, and he proceeded to score on Maxey, and then it went downhill from there. So, I mean, what do y'all think about that? Do you think we might see a lineup change here in the near future, or no?
Can I start here?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't, because I think we talked about this last week. Rick Carlisle is too stubborn. He wants to start Dwight Powell. He's going to start Dwight Powell. Hell, even when KP comes back, I'm afraid he's going to want to start Dwight Powell. I don't know what it is, but Dwight Powell should not have been in the game for 17 minutes last night. He looked awful. He doesn't look like he's ready to contribute yet. He can't play defense. He looked lost. Part of that maybe because he hasn't played in a while, but also, I don't think he's what everybody has this vision of Powell in their head, that he's some dominant role guy, starting talent, all that stuff.
Which he was pre-injury by the numbers, but now, I mean.
But he's not that anymore.
Yeah, his biggest attribute was his athleticism. So if he's lost a step there, I mean, he can't shoot.
Right.
He can't protect the rim. So, I mean, you got to make
rebound.
a hard call there.
Yes, there needs to be a hard call made. Maybe he works better coming off the bench with Maxey, like we saw, in the past, where they're a very good tandem, and they work well with Brunson and hopefully Trey Burke, even though both of them didn't play particularly well either. But Maxey was also awful. Like you mentioned, minus 18 or minus 19, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Might as well have been minus 20. He got abused on defense. Neither him or Powell could rebound yesterday. And for some reason, I'm going to get to this in a minute, but he was in the game over Josh Richardson, I believe. Was he not? Somebody was in the game instead of Josh Richardson on the final 2 possessions, and that just completely cost them. But going back to the center, Willie was the only one who looked capable last night.
Yeah.
And the fact that he looked that good in those few minutes and only got those few minutes is baffling to me. I don't understand.
And I mean, this goes back to last season too. Even when he didn't get that many minutes, he was always productive. He'd only get I think he only played 15 minutes in that last game before the shutdown earlier this year against Denver. And he was a team high in the box score plus minus in that game too. So like I said, when he's in there, I mean, he may not be the perfect center. He's going to mess up here and there like anybody would, but the production speaks for itself as, on the scoreboard. So I think if you're going to hire a guy like Bob Voulgaris to be your analytical guy, and that's going to be one of your main things that you look at going forward, I think you have to look at stuff like that and say, well, this is working better with Willie Cauley-Stein over Powell. We need to go this way, kind of nudge Rick in the right direction. Show him, put it on paper and show him, like, look, Rick, let's just try it and see what happens.
Let me ask both of you guys this. Is there anything right now that Dwight Powell does better than Willie?
I would say there's one thing. That
Effort.
coach trusts him to stand in the right place.
I mean, a physical attribute that he brings to the game: shot blocking, rebounding, shooting, anything. Is there
Probably
one
not.
single thing?
Probably not. And I'm not trying to defend the Carlisle's Powell love, but I am trying to explain it. I use this guy as my example all the time, and I always forget his name when he was here. And he used to be with the Lakers, and then he played here when Avery was the coach. God, I can't believe I can't remember his name. The veteran, but he always played. He was the guy that blocked his own trade to New Jersey. Remember that guy?
Who are we talking about here? Nick Van Exel?
No,
it's a big guy, right?
it was a wing, big wing, Lakers. Dang it! I'll think.
Oh, Devin George.
Devin George. Why can't I think of that?
Yeah. There we go.
Well, Devin George played way too many minutes for Avery, all the time, and the reason was, even though he wasn't good, but the coach trusted him. He was the security blanket. He knew that the play would be run right. The guy, at least one guy, would be standing in the right place. Dwight Powell gives you that. Right? Dwight Powell is the coach finds to be reliable. And he is obviously an extremely reliable person, human, I mean. But I think I think you guys are being way too hard on him, but I think he's a specialist. I don't think he's bad. I don't think he's good. I don't think he's a starting center. I'm not even sure he's a center. I think he's a specialist. The same way Trey Burke is a specialist. And Carlisle recognizes that. He's going to come in and do that little thing when we need that little thing. There's not room for Trey Burke to always have a full-time role every night. There's not room for him.
Yeah.
I wish that Carlisle would look at the possibility that Willie Cauley-Stein, who I hope we're not just saying this because he's a friend of this program. Surely we're not just biased.
No. I've been saying it since they traded for him.
Yeah. He's more conventional. He's a kind of I mean, there's no such thing as an old school center anymore, but he's big and he's long and he blocks shots and he doesn't worry about scoring. That's like old fashioned-y. And I don't think anybody likes that anymore. So I do think that the analytics department goes to Rick and says, here's our spreadsheet. It's probably yay thick. And I think that Carlisle. Huh?
And I mean, look, given what we've seen, even though I do agree that for the most part, he's more of a traditional center. If you had to have one of the two, if you had to have Powell or Cauley-Stein shoot a three, which one would you guys choose?
At this point, I would choose Cauley-Stein because he showed me he can make them in the preseason.
Right. But more than that is Dalton Trigg's big, thick analytical book, which is showing you that by the numbers, Willie Cauley-Stein deserves to not have 1/3 as many minutes as the starting center. That's your point. And I'll say this, and this is my defense of Carlisle, who happens to be a friend of my shows. I don't know if he likes you guys.
He probably hates us.
If he's listened.
I know he's aware, and that's a good start. I've always said about him ever since he first came here that he has 1 foot in the Red Auerbach, Boston Celtics style of coaching, which is there's an old school, grind it out, roll up your sleeves. But then under Mark Cuban, he's got another foot in this new thing. And now it's a decade later. But I still believe that. I think Carlisle is a beautiful combination of old school and new school. I think he has access to the analytics. I think he believes in them and listens to them. And then he decides, who can I rely on? And he tells Dwight, go play.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes. Because, I mean, to be honest, I mean, if Ayton, he didn't punish the Mavs as much as he could have.
He punished Maxey.
He did, but what I'm saying is it could have been worse if he hadn't been in early foul trouble.
Right.
So
there's a sequence. I think there was 4 straight plays when one of them was they threw it the length of the court almost to Ayton because he was down deep on Maxey. Speaking of a guy that can do some old school things, just give me the ball down low and, you can't stop me. That was pretty impressive. But thank goodness he was in foul trouble. And Maxey's supposed to be and has his moments, I guess, as a good defender. But Maxey was grossly overmatched there. Willie Cauley Stein comes in and he was not grossly overmatched.
And
there
look,
you go.
If we think that he was overmatched in that one, that's leading into our next point here. The Mavs have an opportunity to rebound against the Lakers and LeBron on primetime Christmas Day game. But now if they play Powell and Maxey against this big, it's Anthony Davis, which is another step up, and that has the potential to be really ugly. So I'm really interested to see if they look at what happened in that game and they try to switch it up a little bit. Like I said, if they would start Willie Cauley Stein and it doesn't work, I would shut up. I would shut up about it. I just want them to try it. Just one time.
It's not just Anthony Davis either. It's also the backup is Marc Gasol, correct?
Yes.
So this isn't DeAndre Ayton, who's still kind of learning how to play in the NBA, and some guy named Damian James and some guy named Jalen Smith, who all three just had their way last night. It's the best big in the league, arguably, in Anthony Davis, and one of the best in the last 2 decades in Marc Gasol, who, he doesn't have a step like he used to, but he's still good and he still knows what he's doing. And if he gets to go up against somebody like Dwight or Maxey, he's going to have his way too. And the Lakers are probably frothing at the mouth right now.
Marc Gasol, by the way, the almost Maverick.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, don't make me cry. It's almost Christmas.
Always the bridesmaid, But look, I mean, I really do expect Luka to bounce back and have a really a much better shooting night against the Lakers. He loves playing against LeBron. He loves playing at Staples Center, even though it's going to be different this time. There's no fans there, but he loves that spotlight, and he's so hard on himself that I think he'll bounce back in a good way. So I'm really excited about that. We'll see how it goes for the Mavs. The Lakers, they're 0-1 too. So it's not like the sky is just falling for all these teams who start out with a loss. I reminded somebody last night that, during the Mavs' winningest season ever, where they won 67 regular season games, they started out that season 0-4. So,
I still can't believe that.
You never want to overreact too much to a season opening loss. So,
right, but 0-3 is staring you in the face.
Yes,
and there's only, but I mean 72 games instead of 82. So it does crank it up a little bit. And then there's the issue of confidence, and we can all and the Mavericks can all strut around and talk about how they know how good they are and they know what this next step is and we know what we have to do. But, talk is cheap, especially compared to a Suns team that now beats you all the time, a Lakers team that's the defending champion, and a Clippers team that in our coverage of that series, we keep writing how close the Mavericks made it. But,
Well, and look, and I'll get both of y'all's takes on this. And I told Matt, it might've been you that I told, I can't remember, but yesterday before that game even started, I told somebody that I actually felt better about the following games against the Lakers and Clippers than I did about the Suns game, just because of how horribly they've played against the Suns for, the last 3-4 years. I mean, it's just been awful. It's just one of those teams that has their number no matter what. So, I mean, you knew it was going to be tough coming into it, and they still almost won despite, having a horrible shooting night. So,
yeah, but you better solve that, because we did a thing on DallasBasketball.com. Richie Witt wrote it about how all those years where Cuban and Nelly tried to engineer a roster that could beat the Lakers. Remember that? And then they never played the Lakers.
Yeah.
Well, right now, the Mavericks have this focus on these teams over there. But what if you're what if you're the 4th seed and the Suns are the 5th seed?
That'd be a nightmare.
You might want to figure out how to beat them.
Especially since they added Chris Paul, because, now they have that clutch player who can go out and, get a big defensive play and score on the offensive end too. So Suns are good. They've gotten a lot better. They're younger guys, or they have another year of experience, and I definitely think they're a playoff team this year. But
Well, one thing that I don't want to see this season that we saw last season from a few people who I won't name because it's fine. But the whole, oh my God, they only lost to the Knicks once. Well, now they lost to the Knicks twice, but it doesn't matter. Well, how they keep losing to all of these teams that they should be beating.
Right.
And they can't do it. But for some people, it's not a big deal. It was like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. We have Luka and we're good. No, it does matter, because those games are the difference between a 4th seed and a 5th seed, or a 3rd seed and a 6th, whatever it is. Had they won those games that they were supposed to win last year, for example, they wouldn't have played the Clippers.
Right.
They played the Rockets, and then maybe they get to the second round. And especially in a season like Fish mentioned, where it's 72 games, there's 10 less games you have less margin for error.
Yeah.
So every game matters just a little bit more. So you can't have games like last night where you just come out flat. Yeah. That's not going to work this year.
Especially when you see what's happening with a team like the Rockets, who, they had to postpone their game with the Thunder last night because they didn't even have enough players to suit up because of COVID stuff.
By the way, and the NFL has a problem with this too. Why do you postpone the game?
I get the NBA has you have to have at least 8 players active, and I brought this up on
they didn't have 20 guys with COVID.
Right. But and this is another reason why James Harden put the Rockets in a tough position, because if he had been in Houston when he was supposed to be, and he had passed all the COVID protocol and all that, he would have been active and they would have been able to continue on with that game. But since he wasn't, and then the other guys that had COVID, they were under that 8-player active minimum. So there's another way James Harden has hurt his team in the last few weeks.
I wonder if he knew that.
Not everybody that I talk to understands this. I did this on 105.3 The Fan the other day about how James Harden is a Mavericks weapon, because he is destroying one of their rivals. And not everybody gets this. No, not James. And I don't want James Harden on my team ever, because he'll destroy my team. I don't care how talented he is, and he's incredibly gifted. I mean, he has reinvented offensive basketball, and that's a fact. But he's also reinvented a new level of selfishness. And I mean, the fat joke, I don't usually make fat jokes on guys, but he'd bring all of this on himself. He deserves every joke. He's destroying a franchise because of selfishness. But and I'll defer to you, Dalton, on the rules. But what if 3 guys had sprained ankles? Are we postponing the game?
I guess. I mean, I don't know. I think it's.
What if 10 guys had sprained ankles?
I think if you have 5 guys who can suit up, and even if you go below that, if the team still wants to play, you can still do it. Because one example I brought up the other day, I don't know if y'all remember this, but when Colin Sexton was still at Alabama, he was playing against Minnesota, and they had like this thing where all of Alabama's bench came on the court after an altercation, and then 2 of the guys that were on the court got ejected too. So they had to play 3-on-5 the rest of the game, and Colin Sexton still almost came back and beat Minnesota playing 3-on-5. So it can be done. I mean,
can we swear on this show?
Yeah.
Sure.
And so to that situation is the same as Houston's situation. Tough shit. Same as the Denver Broncos situation. You don't have a quarterback? You better go get one, because we got a game tomorrow. We're not postponing the game. I don't understand what the NFL did with the Baltimore Ravens. Every time the Baltimore Ravens sneezed, they got their game postponed. Yeah. No, you got to play. And if you got, the only time that I'm going to suspend a game, God forbid, if the team's playing goes down. All right, now we're going to give you a break. But we're not going to, if James Harden is driving to the game and he gets a flat tire and can't show up on time, I'm not postponing the game. Yeah. You lose. I don't get it at all. I don't get it at all.
At the very least, if they're going to, if it's going to be that easy to postpone a game this year, I think they should at least look at expanding the roster a little bit, because, they made it to where the 2-way guys don't have to, only spend 45 days with the team and then go back off the main roster. But I think if they expanded it to like 20, say 20, and you can have 18 active players, Fish, is kind of like in the NFL, like what you've been saying with the have a COVID quarterback,
Yeah.
Just sitting to himself. The NBA needs to have some of those type players just sitting back and waiting for situations like that.
Right. You got your two-way, you got your G League, you got your practice squad, you got your COVID quarterback, your QQ, quarantine quarterback, whatever it takes. But I'll tell you what, if Luka's ever hurt and is going to miss a week, and the Mavericks won't be good enough without Luka, and they're playing that week, they're playing the Lakers or the Clippers. If I'm the Mavericks, I might go, ooh, I think it's broke. I got a sniffle. We got some guys with a cold. We might have to postpone this game. And I'd tell them that I got guys with colds, flus. It's cold and flu season. And then I get a postponement of a game. What a great way to cheat. You can argue that that's what the Baltimore Ravens did, that they bought themselves some time by saying, I don't know, we got a lot of sick guys over here. And meanwhile, in the NFL, I know for a fact there's teams that guys are sick and they're still playing, and then we'll worry about it Monday. So I don't like it. I'm not comfortable with any of it, but I'm certainly not comfortable. I'm not comfortable giving the Houston Rockets any breaks. How about that? Yeah.
And I mean, look, we hope that nothing like that happens with the Mavs, but when you're not playing in a bubble, it's bound to happen at some point. But like Rick Carlisle said, there are ways you can avoid it, as long as you have everybody on board and you don't have a situation like James Harden, who is going out to a strip club. Well, I'm sorry. He said he was going to his friend's, what was it? His friend got a promotion and it was a party for his friend. He just showed up to give her a present or something.
He gave her a present, all right. He gave her a present. He probably gave her, I'll forget it. All I know is I'm not a strip club guy.
Yeah. But
if I was, the olden days, you wear protection on one end. Now you need to wear protection on both ends. That's all I'm saying.
Look, Matt, I'm going to get your thoughts on this too, because I know how critical you've been of this certain player. But after we talk about this, we're going to wrap it up by getting y'all's Christmas Day predictions for the Mavs. But before we get to that, I have to mention this. Jalen Brunson was awesome last night, especially in the fourth quarter. And Matt, you may not want to admit it, but he was the reason. Him and Willie Cauley were the reason that the Suns didn't pull away earlier and make that game, almost embarrassing for the Mavs, or at least more so than what it was at that point. So I think we need to at least mention, it is nice to have Jalen Brunson back with that second unit.
Sure. It is nice to a certain extent. My thing with last night was, and it wasn't just Jalen, it was really the entire roster outside of really Luka and Josh Richardson maybe. But especially the bench unit, they looked lost. The preseason, they looked great, but that's the preseason. Brunson and Trey Burke kind of looked like they had no idea what they were doing during portions of the game. And
it did look like a bunch of, like, all freelancing.
Yeah, like it was. Oh wait, this shot's not. Well, maybe I should do this. Okay. I mean, it was they didn't know what they were doing for a large portion of that game, and I think that also contributed to why the whole team was playing so poorly. I mean, you can't do anything if your guards are just passing it back and forth to one another, and this guy's rolling that way, but nobody's looking at him. And then, well, should I go over here? I mean, it was bad. And maybe that's because there was a little bit of roster turnover, but the guys on the bench have all been playing together for the last couple of years. So I don't know what the answer is. I don't know where they go from here, but they need to figure out something with the bench unit, because it looked like a mess. Maybe inserting Dwight back into the bench unit helps, because he, like Fish said, knows where to stand and all that stuff. But
meanwhile, maybe we need to quit saying it's the bench mob. It's not anything. It's not anything yet.
Last night it wasn't.
In the preseason, it looked pretty good, but like we said before, you can't hang your hat on that.
Whose bench looked better last night?
Phoenix.
Not Dallas.
No question. So why don't they
Langston
be the bench
Galloway?
mob? Huh?
What was that?
So why isn't Phoenix the bench mob? Why don't they have a nickname?
I don't know. We think about before the Powell and Brunson injuries last year, how good the Mavs bench was, but Trey Burke wasn't a part of that at that point. And Josh Green wasn't a part of it at that point. So you still have pieces that you have to work in there, and you have to create that chemistry all over again. Right. And as much as we like the fit with Luka and Josh Richardson, that starting five has to, build some chemistry too, and some real NBA games going forward. So, but yeah. I just wanted
I will mention one other thing. James Johnson needs more minutes.
I agree with that. Yes.
He was one guy out there who looked like he knew what he was doing, and one of 2 or 3 guys on the whole roster who looked like they could pass and knew where to go with the ball. So I think he needs more minutes, maybe at the expense of some of Maxi's minutes even. I mean, it doesn't matter to me where they come from, but he needs to be on the floor more.
And look, I said,
go ahead.
Okay. Well, I said this on the last episode, I believe, but if Rick Carlisle is going to start Powell, then, and I mean, if he's not going to play Willie Cauley, if he's just going to put him out there for 6 minutes and, yank him real quick and not really give him a chance, I would rather have him put James Johnson as that backup five. So what do y'all think?
No, yeah, I think that works. Anything is better than what we saw last night. Last night's rotations did not work. So
I think, and I'll close with this: the highlight when the ball was spinning round and round on the rim, and Dalton, I think you put up a tweet on it.
Yeah.
And maybe the Mavericks themselves did. And the shot is from the other end of the court. So you're watching the back of the Mavericks, of 5 Mavericks, watching that ball going around and around and around. And the fact that they were into it. It was like they were at a roulette wheel in Paris, and $1 billion was riding on it. It was really cool that they were into it. Oh, the guys are dancing and they're twerking and the whole thing, and body English and everything. So between that and James Johnson committing 5 fouls on one play on a guy's drive to the basket, I thought it was, at least the effort was good. He hits his wrist, then hits him in the face, then one more time just for fun, he rakes him across the face. It was fantastic. So welcome to Dallas, James.
It'll, at the very least, it'll make people think twice about driving to the rim on him. So okay, that's gonna do it. But before we take off, what do y'all think happens on Christmas Day? I'm predicting a bounce back win for the Mavs, because I just don't see Luka going 11 of 26 again, and I also don't see the Mavs as a whole shooting just 9 of 37 from 3 for 2 straight games. What do y'all think?
I'll let Fish be the grand finale. I think the Lakers win. I think the Mavs are starting 0-3. I think the Lakers win. I think it's close. I do think Luka plays better. I do think Tim Hardaway Jr. plays better. I don't think Dwight Powell plays better, because I think he's going to get torched. And I think that's what's going to lose them the game, is that they don't have an answer for Anthony Davis unless, they give Willie Cauley Stein a shot. Even he's not going to be able to do much, but he can do more than the other guys.
I will say this, and then Fish, you can close us here, but I will say this: the bench is going to be huge in this game, because when you have guys like Montrezl Harrell and Dennis Schroeder coming off the bench, you have offensive punch, but your defense isn't going to be very good. So,
correct.
Yeah.
Fish, what do you think happens?
I would say the only way to stop Anthony Davis would be to trade for him, and that's not going to happen. And then my other Christmas Day prediction is I'm going to give my kids cash for Christmas, because I'm sick of loaning them money.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, look, I respect that. I know you're not really a predictions kind of guy. That's kind of how Mark Cuban is too. He's not going to make any predictions. So
And speaking of giving away money, I'm exactly like that when in regard to Mark Cuban. Very similar.
Yeah.
In terms of the amount of money we give away to our
Yeah.
people.
It'd be hard to tell the difference between y'all.
Well, guys, look, I appreciate y'all talking with me today. And like I said, we're hoping for a Mavs bounce back on Christmas Day. Regardless, it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. It's the first time in nearly a decade they've played on Christmas. So soak it in, it's a new season, new possibilities. But guys, we appreciate y'all coming in and listening. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite platforms. Yes, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. We're getting very close to our goal of 1,000 subscribers. So keep hitting it. Tell your family, tell your friends, get them on there to subscribe.
When this podcast, by the way, I have a podcast too. I mean, I have a YouTube too. Can I plug it or not? Is that legal?
Yeah.
On YouTube?
Yes,
ahead.
of course.
I think it's called Fish Sports DFW. I don't know. It's gigantic.
Yeah.
But when Dalton finally gets to 1,000 subscribers, he's going to be able to take those jerseys and put them in frames.
Yeah.
Instead of on the dry cleaner hanger. So come on, people. Come on, Mavs Nation.
If you want the nicer setup, we gotta reach that goal.
Exactly.
Thanks,
good.
boys.
Hey, I hope that plug works. But anyway, all right, y'all.